It's Jay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. We've got a couple segments. We're going to be looking at the fire dangers facing our nation and how our tribe is responding. And also we will be looking at some of the fine arts with segments loaned us from Wildfire, Jared Moore, producer there, on classical singers. And Native American people have always had a presence in the fine arts, although it hasn't always been recognized. But we're going to break out a little bit of discussion about that and maybe hear a song that may or may not lift your spirits. Okay, but first of all, we want to welcome Charlie Harley into our studio today. Thank you, sir, for making time to come in. We appreciate you being here.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Okay, our subject here is something that's been in the news a lot. Gosh, longer than I actually remember during any particular year. Started off in the late spring, shall we say, and now it is August, and fires are still raging. Now, if you've watched the news, you've seen coverage of massive fires burning up big chunks of California and other places around the nation that have actually killed people, destroyed property and homes and people's livelihoods. And Oklahoma has not escaped the problem there. As a matter of fact, my brother told me he had the fire come up to his back door the other day over in Bristol last week, I guess. And he was sweating that one out pretty well, but managed to survive. Well, Charlie, I guess the first question we need to ask you, though, is what's your assessment of the fire season this year? Is it worse than others? Is it kind of something we expect every once in a while? How would you assess it?
Well, as I was saying before, it runs on like a 10-year average. History kind of repeats itself, so we're expecting the same type of fire behavior as we had back in 2012.
What kind of fire was that? Like, what kind of behavior was that?
That was terrible.
Was it bad? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't recall, but I do recall some fires in the past, but I can't exactly remember what. Was there any big ones in particular?
Yes, there was one up in Bristol called the McNack Fire. It burned up 60,000 acres and over 300 structures.
Oh, wow. And how long did that last?
It lasted almost a week.
A week-long fire. Mm. Wow. What kind of reinforcement did you guys have in that?
We had several resources from all over the U.S. here assisting us prior to that, but then once that fire broke out, we committed most of our resources to that. We couldn't commit fully because we still had the responsibility to the rest of the nation.
Right. So you said that was the Bristol area?
Yes.
Is that the same area your brother lives in?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so just 10 years later, we're kind of seeing the same thing. Did you know anything about this recent fire he's talking about?
No, I did not.
Do you know how much land your brother...
Well, he's got 40 acres there, and I'm sure at least 30 acres was affected.
Right.
Including our deer hunting habitat there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and of course our family has a couple of oil wells out there, and I have yet to go out and take a look and see if anything's going on.
Yeah, you better check those. What do you have to say about oil wells being on land and the fires? What can be the cause of that?
Faulty wiring. In certain areas of Oklahoma, they use what they call Rita cables, and they're supposed to be buried underground, but they're placed above ground, and the cattle will walk across them, and
it can start a fire.
It can start a fire.
Right. Can it damage or cause a bigger fire or explosion or anything?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of chemicals are in the well, whether it be gas or oil.
Kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, now, it's easy to see when you drive by pastures and lands, these big tanks out there. And have your crews encountered a situation where one of those things blew up or caught fire?
No, not to my knowledge, for the past 10 years that I know of that I've been here.
Would that be some kind of like hazard crew cleanup?
Yeah, we'd have to call in the hazmat crew. The tanks are supposed to be maintained by the individual leasee,
right.
but we have to go out and inspect them occasionally, and at least once a year. So the tribe inspects them and the BIA inspects them also to make sure that everything's functioning properly and it's maintained, grass is cut back, and no leaks or anything like that.
Would a leak be one of the major problems?
Yeah, there was a leak a couple of years ago over in Okima that disrupted their water system and put them out of service for about 6 months, I guess it was.
You got fire going on and no water to battle with.
Oh man, that would not be good.
Yeah.
Not be good. So what can you say about the trend 10 years ago to now? Like I said, there was a fire in Bristow just recently. What are other fires around that time that we should expect to see or look for or be aware of?
The majority of the fires that are caused around here in Indian country are just careless, reckless fires. It's people barbecuing, placing the coals in a plastic container versus a metal container and just setting them out in the bushes or setting them off to the side, and then the plastic melts and fire gets out. Or burning trash or... Yeah.
Burning trash is like pretty common among, this area too, because it's so rural. I can't even say that word. That a lot of people burn their trash, and so if they do that, what can you say about that? Like,
just stay there and monitor it till it's completely out, or you have a good black lined area around it where the fire won't escape.
You had mentioned burn bans. Does that kind of affect being able to burn your trash or anything like that?
Yes, and you'd have to check with your local fire department to see who's in a burn ban. It all depends on the fire jurisdiction, the county. Then after it goes for so many days of drought, the state will take over and place them into a burn ban.
With all the new development going on in our state and into rural areas, you see a lot of people clearing off their land, and then you got to get rid of what's the word I'm looking for? Slash
piles.
Thank you. Wow, piles, piles. Anyway, they want to burn those off just to get rid of, the stumps and whatever else. Now, for me, I always thought those things had got to be the most dangerous effort out there. I mean, geez, why?
It is, and for some reason, people like to do that in the fall when everything is dormant. That is the worst time to burn any kind of slash pile around because everything is dormant. The winds pick up around here to 20, 30 miles an hour sometimes. And fires spread very rapidly around here.
What about the heat? Does that kind of have any effect on the way fire reacts or spreads?
Yeah, the heat around here, when the temperatures go up, the humidity goes down. And the drier the air, the more susceptible everything is to fire.
To fire, yeah.
It'll quickly ignite and spread.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
No, I was just following along there. The spread of fire, ground clutter, and of course the grasses and flat areas. I presume that all contributes to the problem there.
Yeah. You remember earlier this year we had quite a bit of rain in the springtime, and that has caused the grass to grow pretty tall in certain areas. And
like my backyard.
And with those certain areas, now we have a lot of dormant fuel on the ground due to the heat.
Dead grass.
Yeah. So that causes a lot more problems. We get higher flame lengths, hotter temperatures around the fire.
Yeah, when I had an assignment out in Northern California a few years back, and the information people were, driving around our assigned area, and the guy was pointing out different things for me, the rookie, to find, learn. And one of them was dissipating the ground clutter and trying to keep the fires from spreading. In other words, it looked like just, you rake your yard and all the grass piles up. It looked like that for several acres. Now, is a technique like that worthwhile here, or is it just out of hand? Would it work?
Kind of. In the pastures, they're out there baling hay right now.
Mm.
So that helps keeping the fuels down low. But at the same time, when they're out there baling hay, sometimes they'll hit a rock, and the spark in that rock will ignite a hay fire out there. So.
Around my house, I've noticed that like leaves are already falling, and could that like be somewhat of a fire hazard? Like I live in a neighborhood, but if leaves are already falling this early, what are ways we can kind of prevent?
Just keep your yard maintained, raked up, bag all the leaves, and put them in the trash can, and have them hauled off. I was saying back in 2012 when that Bristol fire happened, that the spot fires were igniting at least a half a mile out from stuff like leaf litter that would get caught up in the updraft and fall.
Oh wow, that's a far travel for a leaf, or whatever.
It means it's easy to cross highways and roads and
rivers and streams.
And your pickup. I saw, some of that, as I was saying a little earlier, we saw, where crews had gone in and piled stuff up to disperse the fuels. And I think our former president said something about going to Sweden and seeing how the Swedish or something like that had got out and raked all their leaves into piles. And that was their way of fighting the fire. And I'm thinking, no, Mr. President, I don't think so. I can't imagine, families out there with rakes. No, it takes a lot more than that, believe me. As the season is now, are we like in the middle of the worst part of it, or is it moving along there?
Yeah, for me, this is always the worst part because we have, leaves on the trees, and the flame lengths get a couple 100 feet at times when the trees ignite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real hard to contain. It jumps roads real easy, and jumps our lines pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty hard to maintain.
You had mentioned like carelessness being a big factor in the fires. Is it like, do you notice like that being due to maybe more outdoor gatherings and things like that?
No, it's mainly due to trash burning, really. People sit there and burn their trash, and they'll watch it for a little bit in the morning, then they'll go inside and continue doing what they were doing, then come back out, and the 40
it's already
acres is on
out of
fire.
hand. Yeah, I see.
And cigarettes, people stupidly throwing a cigarette out the window.
Yeah, that's always a problem right there.
If, driving along, you just flick it out the window.
I see that a lot at night when I'm going home after a fire, cigarettes being flipped out from the car windows. And
I bet that's irritating for you.
It is.
Like, don't start a fire, please. I just got off one. About a month ago, there was a fire in Henrietta that actually 2 elderly people had died in their trailer from. I guess whenever responders arrived, it was already engulfed in flames. So what can you say about trailers and fires during these times?
Ooh. We're not really a structural fire department, but it is, that's some of the knowledge we get from watching that when a grass fire is going through and it's headed for a mobile home, that it's best to just evacuate because most trailer houses go up within like 15 minutes. They're completely down on the ground.
And all the stuff in it.
And everything in it.
Yeah. So they're not really equipped for any kind of weather in general or any kind of, I guess, disaster you could call it.
And they're made out of combustible material.
Yes. And they're
getting trapped inside.
If they don't have the skirting around the sides, the wind just goes right under it, and it's.
I see a lot of people living in trailers too around here. Kind of like a lot of those people burn their trash type of thing. So what are preventable ways like to keep your home safe if you lived in a mobile home?
Use burn barrels. Throw all your trash in a barrel so that way if something, your aerosol cans explode, they'll be contained. It's inside the barrel, not ejected all over the place. Cover the top with some kind of screen mesh, expanded metal, something with a lid so that it can vent.
Okay. Yeah, it's just sad that this just happened recently and we're talking about fires, I guess there were 2 elderly people and their house went up at 4 a.m. I'm not sure if they couldn't get out or what all the details were, but just all the trailer homes around here just reminded me in the conversation about fires. So what is like your what has been your hardest fire that you fought in your career?
The worst one was the McNack for me because we couldn't maintain it. The wind shifted on us like every day. It would come out of the north and then come out of the south, and the front would come in and come out back out of the north again. So we were battling the fire back and forth with shifting winds every other day.
Are your crews ready? I mean, prepared for it and carrying a little tent? What do they call that?
The fire shelter.
Fire shelter. Thank you.
Yeah, we're ready for that, but it doesn't matter how prepared you are. You know, long hot days like this with the humidity around here in Oklahoma and the temperatures, the heat will drain you within minutes.
Yeah, yikes. What's the best way to report a fire or gain assistance? What should people do if something like that happens?
Call the local fire department in your area. All fire departments in Creek Nation boundaries have the number to the BIA fire. Mm-hmm. So if a fire occurs in that area and they need assistance, they will give us a call and we will be there.
Does the status of the land ever make any difference, like whether it's federal land, BIA, or tribal land, or privately owned? Does it ever figure in? I know fire doesn't care. But.
Yeah, fire doesn't care, but yes, it does. You know, if the local fire department can handle it and calling in extra resources that are in their task force area, they'll control it that way. But if they need assistance from us, we will assist them. Mm-hmm. But our priority is tribal lands around here, and
sure.
So that's why we're here.
Yeah, and then after that, saving lives. Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're about out of time here. If someone wanted to get in touch with you to either report a fire or ask for help or an application for a slash burn or even curious about joining your unit, how would they get in touch with you?
Just send me a text at 918-752-7340, and I'll be glad to answer any kind of questions that you have.
Okay, and you can handle all those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from your end, Morgan?
No. Do you guys do burn permits?
Yes, we do burn permits.
You guys can get those out?
Permits are supposed to be used on all tribal properties and individual lot of land, so.
So get your burn permits before you burn. All right.
At least they'll know where the fire is.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, Charlie, thank you so much for coming in. I know this is an important topic, and we're going to keep our eyes on this one as the rest of the summer moves along, and who knows if we have to call you back in, sir.
Thank you for the update.
Okay, we're going to take a short pause here, and we're going to start looking at the fine arts and Mvskoke people who are participating, particularly singers. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio. We'd like to thank our multimedia producer for Mvskoke Media, Jared Moore. He has been sharing much of the programming that he's been doing. We kind of tend to look at some of the same subjects, and so we're always pleased to be able to share some of the important stuff, some of the fun stuff, and the musical stuff as we have today. So we're going to take an interview that he did with his guest, and then we'll listen to some of their music. So please stay with us here as we share a discussion with Dr. Kunkel. Well, I tell you what, let's fiddle with this machine and we're going to share the loud version. And so, here we go again with more of the fun and games on live radio. So let's try that again.
To another Live Wire. I'm Jared Moore with Mvskoke Media, and today's guest is Dr. Kirsten Kunkel. She is a Mvskoke operatic soprano. She is also the co-founder and artistic director of the Wilmington Concert Opera, a grassroots women and minority-led opera company in Wilmington, Delaware. And you might recognize Dr. Kunkel from our 2021 election watch party live stream where we featured her performance of her composition, Death of Hot Gun. Today we're going to have her on the program to talk about her participation in Yellowstone Revealed, part of the celebrations for the 150th year of the Yellowstone National Park. So, Dr. Kunkel, with that all being said, thanks for joining us today on the program.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back here and talking again, Jared. Nice to see you.
So, give us a little bit about what is Yellowstone Revealed and how you got involved with it and what you're contributing.
Sure. So, the performance you mentioned that you aired during the election coverage was actually recorded at Intermountain Opera Bozeman's concert last year in May, so 2 Mays ago. And at that concert, I met a wonderful fellow native, and his name is Shane Doyle. And he was actually on our interview that we all did together. So Shane actually talked to me at that performance and said he was part of Mountain Time Arts, who was doing this big collaboration with Yellowstone that he wanted to bring as many of us as he could back to perform for Yellowstone Revealed. As it happens, only 2 of us are coming back, but we're really excited about it, and Intermountain Opera Bozeman is also involved. So we're doing great things with that, and the part I am doing is part of the All Nations TP Village that Shane is running, and for it, I started out only being a performer, which is in itself amazing and exciting, but then that escalated. At some point I offered to write a poem for the occasion, because it's the 150th anniversary of Yellowstone, so this is a very big historic moment, and they're really trying to reach the tribes, specifically that had been on Yellowstone land, but really all of the native tribes out there, as many as possible, to be involved in this historic event. So I offered to write a poem for it, and he said, well, let me see about if we could commission it. And that turned into commissioning an actual art song for the event, which I did write, and I'm going to premiere. So I wrote the poetry, I wrote the music, and I'm going to premiere it. And that's a really big, wonderful, and so exciting moment for me in my career, but also because it means so much that I can represent Mvskoke at the Yellowstone for this specific event. That's something I never thought I'd get to do on that level, and it's really just so exciting for me as a performer, and now as a composer, but also as, a native person, trying to make sure that representation is really happening.
And I want to remind everybody who's watching out there, if you have a question for Dr. Kunkel or me, just pop it into the YouTube chat and we'll try to get it asked. So for anybody who wants to catch this, is the only way to see it go to Yellowstone, or is it going to be streamed anywhere or broadcast anywhere?
I don't know that it's going to be live streamed. I don't believe it will. I do believe it will be videotaped so that you can see it later. Even if Mountain Time Arts, for some reason, the record fails, the video fails, I plan to record it as well. I got permission for that so I could have it through my own records. So if nothing else, at the very least, it will eventually be available on my YouTube page, which is, you can just search my name.
Awesome, yeah, for sure. And so Mountain Time Arts, they're gonna do a recording of it, and it's gonna be on their website, or?
I believe so. I think that's the plan. That hasn't been solidified yet, but I believe so.
Gotcha.
So, and if not, I will be happy to reach out and get you my video.
All right. Well, and if for the audience that's watching this, when we have more on that, I'll try to put a link in the description of this video so you can click through and go to their website and check out the performance. what is the composition that you did? Could you kind of talk about what it is? And because I know the previous Death of Hot Gun was based on Alexander Posey, who you found out was one of your ancestors, who's a famous Muskogee poet. What's the genesis or the idea behind this piece?
Sure. So the first piece that I did that you're mentioning, full title is Hot Gun on the Death of Hideka Garcho. It's his only poem that's in Pidgin English, and I really wanted that to be set. It's a long story. I talked about it on our last interview, so if anybody's interested, please go back and check it out. But yeah, Alex Posey was my great uncle, and he had a very famous poem that he wrote, which was a little more free verse, that said, "All my people are poets," and that's the title of it. And I feel kind of like I'm kind of stepping into something there that I get to take the mantle, if you will. I don't know that I can compare myself to Posey, but it's nice to be able to represent in that way. So it is called Reclaim the Land, and it is very specific to Yellowstone. Yellowstone wanted something, Mountain Time Arts and Yellowstone wanted something that was special for this occasion. So in it, I talk about how we're collaboratively coming back to the land. It's supported, it's guided, and it's desired that we are coming back to this land and we are bringing our culture back to it. So in it, I mention the beauty of Yellowstone and everything that's happening around it. The fact that they're lighting these teepees at the north entrance at the Roosevelt Arch. And I mention all that. And then I mention all the things that we, as people, very briefly, very, very quick mentions, all the things that have hindered us from being able to be part of the land until hopefully now. Things like water not being considered valuable and people being removed, referencing the Indian Removal Act, referencing haircutting with the missionaries, referencing residential schools, the missing and murdered indigenous women.
Right.
And they're all just little mentions, but just amid everything that now is the time that we can really take ownership of this and share this land with nature and with the other people that inhabit it, and all of the animals and all of the everything that is Yellowstone. The tribes are important, that we need to make sure that people realize that it's not just beautiful geysers and amazing wildlife. It is the people who inhabited that land. And while that is not Muskogee specifically, we are part of this greater, indigenous movement that people are starting to now realize this is important. And, I'm so excited that my words are going to be heard by people, and I get to do it in my form of my music. That's what I studied my whole life. I've been a singer, a classical singer, pretty much my entire life. Ever since I was 12, I started voice lessons. So it's really exciting to take this Western art music that I've had as part of my background and bring it to, my native heritage in a way that I never expected I'd be able to, and to combine the two, because that's what I am. I am part European American. I'm also part Native, and I think that collaboration makes me unique in my way. I get to be the voice of my ancestors in that way. I think it's very exciting.
I think it's very interesting, the juxtaposition, but then also the synthesis of the two things that come together, especially with the performance we had previously. And I want to mention to the audience too, there is a Facebook event page. The link for it's in the description of this YouTube video. If you want to go look, because there's also it's not just going to be this performance. There's many events, like Dr. Kunkel mentioned earlier, the lighting teepees, and there's guided trail tours and all types of events associated with this Yellowstone Revealed event. So going beyond the Yellowstone Revealed event, I was looking on your webpage there, and I saw that you have some stuff coming up in the fall and then also in the spring, some major things. Could you talk a little bit about those?
Absolutely. So one big thing that I have going on for me in the fall is that during the pandemic, I started writing opera libretti, and I get to finally have a premiere of Massachusetts at Mount Holyoke. That's scheduled for February, and that's really exciting. I'm playing Pulsi in Chickasaw. That means grandmother. It's also related to the story of Loxi, who travels and brings back the shells to her tribe. So this is, to my knowledge, the first fully indigenous language opera.
Oh,
and so this is very historic, to my knowledge. And we're really excited about it. Kate Morton is also featured in that, and some other native singers that I know through my circles of classical singing. But Jared, Tate, and I have become quite close, and he's actually been quite a supporter of mine for this entire Yellowstone project as well. So I'm very grateful to him, because I've been incredibly fortunate to be able to bounce these ideas off of him and have him give me feedback, but also say, you know more than you think you do. Trust yourself, trust your instincts. I'm very happy with the final project for this Yellowstone reveal. And I haven't heard the music yet for Jared's project, but it's coming along, and it's going to be exciting. I hope everything with it just keeps taking off.
Well, it sounds great. And for the audience, too, we did a previous live wire about the Intermountain Opera Bozeman Circle of Resilience that has an interview with everybody that we're talking about is in that interview, too. So if you want to go back in time on our YouTube channel, you can check that out. So with the Chickasaw performance, though, so if somebody can't make it to Massachusetts, is there going to be any way for them to see it or hear it?
I sure hope so. I haven't heard yet. I'm sure there will be archival footage. If nothing else, I can't imagine they would not record it.
Is the Chickasaw government going to be involved at all, like the Chickasaw Nation?
I assume that there will be somewhat, to some degree. I'm not really sure. That's something I haven't discussed with Jared in detail.
Okay.
I know I believe it's a commission through Mount Holyoke, I believe.
Okay.
But I could be wrong about that. I don't know the details. I'm literally just a singer on that project. But that being said, Jared and I do talk a lot. We bounce ideas off of each other all the time, which is really exciting, because we get to be a little more behind the scenes that people don't see all the time. So, we're creating art, hopefully to represent our tribes for the next generations, and especially in our field, because classical Western art music, it's primarily a lot of Western Europeans. You have some Russians as well, but you don't have a lot of Native American voices there. We have some. We don't have a lot. I could say probably a handful. 10, 15 names at most.
Well, and you guys, that group that you guys have formed is kind of like representative of, really, I think it's 3 of the 5 civilized tribes, right? You have you, and then Cherokee and Chickasaw. So
that's right.
That's also, it's not all just one tribe. So that's also an interesting wrinkle there. So, beyond those things, I wanted to say thanks for coming on the program, because it's always nice to have you on here. You're one of the people that we've covered in the past that has a very interesting, is forging a new path really into an interesting field where you don't often see Muskogee people, or really Native Americans, just like you mentioned. So I want to say thank you and Mado for doing what you do. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important to mention with the Yellowstone Revealed project?
About Yellowstone Revealed, not specifically. I hope anyone who hears this, if you happen to be in that general area, please come out. Introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to say, Stungo, someone who actually knows what that means. I'm learning Muskogee through these online programs. I live in Ohio. I don't have the opportunity to discuss things with other Muskogee in person, and this is really exciting for me. My daughter literally just got her tribal card the other day. She's 2 and a half.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. I was like, yes, this is important. This is important that she hears these words and knows that this is who she is. So, as far as all that goes, I hope that I can be the representation in this field that makes all of you proud. I want that.
Well, I'm proud of you too. So.
Oh, thank you, Jared. I appreciate it.
Well, and one thing I don't know if we mentioned, physically, where would they go to see this Yellowstone performance? Like if they were going.
Yes. Okay, so my performance will be on the 24th and 25th of August at 8 p.m. at Madison Junction. So Madison Junction is closest to the West Yellowstone entrance. So if you go in West Yellowstone and you're trying to go toward Old Faithful, you pass it. So that is where it'll be. There will be other events there in Gardner, where the north entrance was. I do want to say that this is really amazing that this is even happening, because if you follow the news at all and you've seen it, Yellowstone got completely flooded in the north entrance. There was a moment where we were all kind of like, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? I put so much time into this piece, poured my heart and soul into it, and I was like, I can't be upset if this doesn't happen, because this is literally nature saying we're taking out the roadway, but we're making it happen, and I'm really excited about that. I get to get back together with two performers that I got to work with in Intermountain Opera Bozeman. I get to take my husband, who's never seen Yellowstone, and he gets to see it and see me perform. That's not something I get to do very often. I often don't get to take family with me when I sing. It's not cost effective, and we have a child, we have a toddler, so trying to balance all that is just very difficult.
Yeah.
But we planned this. We knew it was coming, and I get to share that with someone of my family and with people I care about. So that's really exciting. I'm also singing a piece that I premiered in New York City that is written by a white composer, but it's about the Killers of the Flower Moon. One of the characters from that. And there was a lot of discussion. Should we do this? Should we not? Is that enough to have the background? And I just, he pursued me to do this. He asked around for who should do that piece and premiere it. And, he got over 25 recommendations to have me sing that. And I'm not saying that because I'm bragging. I'm saying that because, he wanted a native singer who could sing it the way he wanted, that would represent the culture as well. Yeah. And so the character in it is Anna Brown, who right after the aria she sings, she gets killed. Wow. So it's really awful and tragic. But I will be singing this aria called Anna's Moon Aria under the moon at Yellowstone. So that's really exciting. And then we are also doing a duet to close out the program. Kate Morton and I are going to do a duet called Fire. It is by the Métis composer Ian Couson, who is a lovely, wonderful composer in person. And just to tie it back into Muskogee culture, poet is Joy Garjo. So that will close out our program, and I'm really so thrilled to be there and doing that. I keep thinking, I have to pinch myself because it's really happening. So it's really exciting.
It sounds amazing. I can't imagine what it's going to be like to see the performance outside underneath the moon and everything. This is free, right? This whole thing is free or open to public and tickets.
I believe it is free. You have to pay the Yellowstone fee to get to Yellowstone.
So you'll be in Yellowstone, so you'll get the price of your admission there, and then you can catch this performance. So this is great, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. We're getting close to our wrap time. I don't see any complaints or questions in the chat, so with that being said, I appreciate you, and we'll tune in and keep everybody updated with what's going on.
Fantastic. Mado, Jared.
Mado, chicha, please.
All right, and we're back, and we're going to take a short pause here. But before we do, I got a couple of announcements that I and our new reporter and my longtime friend, Kaylee Berry, are going to share with you today. And I'll start off by saying the Muskogee Language Program is having a new class called the Conversational Muskogee class, and the instructor is Mvskoke Deer. We have an upcoming story with him in your next paper, August 15th edition, and upcoming online as well. The class is on Mondays and Wednesdays at 1 through the month of August. Call 918-732-7725 for more information. All right, Kaylee, I'm going to let you take over real quick.
Okay, in the Mvskoke Creek Nation, Eufaula Dormitory is currently enrolling students for the 2022-2023 academic year. The Eufaula Dormitory is a Bureau of Indian Education funded peripheral dormitory located in Eufaula, Oklahoma, and offers residential care services for Native American students in 1st through 12th grade.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're going to run back now and listen to Dr. Kunkel again. This time the sound quality will be better, I guarantee you. But she talked about the music here, and so we're going to be sharing some of the performance that she has put together for us. And as she said, it's not a happy song, but it's certainly worth listening to.
Hi again, everyone. So this is not a happy song at all, but I am very happy to be singing it and performing it for you tonight. I'm going to tell you all about it, but first, before I do, I just want to take a moment and recognize Kate, our mezzo-soprano. This is her very first professional job, and I think we should just need to give her an extra round of applause. She and I have been living together this week, and she is a wonderful human being, and she has a wonderful and bright future ahead. So I really hope you'll remember her name and watch for her. She's an excellent person. So this is Hot Gun on the Death of Yadeka Harjo. So do you remember my recital I told you about from the first song I sang? So again, all of the music was based on the poetry of my great-great-great uncle, Alex Posey. I called this my Alex Posey project. In this, I had a number of people that I asked and commissioned to write these songs for me, and they were all white composers. There's a reason for that. Alex Posey was Mvskoke, but he was also of European descent, as am I. So I wanted to embrace that dichotomy, and that was very important to me, so that we had the text of a native poet, but we also had white influence. So I shopped this particular poem out to a bunch of people. It's in Pidgin English. So what is Pidgin English? Pidgin English is basically a dialect. It is written as you would speak it. So Alex was from Oklahoma, and this is written just as his friends would talk. He never wrote in Mvskoke again because he was trying to make sure that his people were going to be embracing the new lifestyle of the white man. He was a poet. He was a satirist, a political satirist, and he was a journalist. He had much tragedy in his life, much more tragedy than most people should, and he died very young, trying to make sure that the people had their proper land allotments during the Dawes Commission. He was trying to help his people when he died in a flood. So I shot this out to a lot of people, and nobody wanted to write it. It didn't appeal to anybody. It wasn't pretty, like, about flowers or historical in the way that, like, an ode to Sequoia was. And all of those were written for that concert as well. But I did have one person who was interested in this, and that was my brother. Now, my brother is not a classical musician. He writes songs, but they're songs that people play in bars. He does play double bass. So he doesn't play double bass with a bow. He doesn't play pizzicato bass. He plays slap bass. If you don't know what slap bass is, you're going to hear it tonight. Julia here has been amazing, absolutely amazing. And when she got this music, I said to Michael, she doesn't have to play slap bass. We will do whatever features her best. And she said, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to rise to the occasion, and I'm going to do it. And I'm a cellist, and I am going to play slap bass. And I am so impressed with what she's doing. It's phenomenal. I'm so impressed. So my brother was interested. And being the type A person that I am, I said, I want this on this program. No one's going to do it. I'm going to do it myself. Now, I am not a composer. That is not my training. I'd learned in school enough. But I'm a singer. And I'm an actor. And for me, that was the most important thing, to tell this story. So this is a dirge. It is meant, in my mind, to be sung around a campfire. So these people in this story, a little more background on that. Posey wrote this novel called The Mvskoke Letters, and in it he talks about all sorts of political situations going on, but it's all satire. And he has these characters, and in The Mvskoke Letters is this poem as prose, but then he also wrote it as poetry. And to my knowledge, it's the only poem he wrote in Pidgin English. So in this, in my mind, these older men are sitting around a campfire, and they're singing and talking about this man that they loved and lost. So Hot Gun is character. He's talking about Yudeka Harjo, this person who has died in his community. And we mention a bunch of different characters, and they all play a major part in the Mvskoke Letters. If you read it, it's published. You can check it out. I highly recommend it. So in this, you have the piano that sets everything up. And then I think of myself as Hot Gun. I'm telling a story. And when my vocal line stops, the bass takes over and gives a melody in this slap bass. It's like someone playing a guitar around the campfire. Now, if you've ever been around a bunch of native elders, you might notice that quite a few of them check their words. They observe. They don't say much. But when they do say something, it has meaning and it has power. And that is what I was trying to convey in this piece. So I am not singing a happy song, but I am beyond delighted to bring this back to you for the first time since I premiered it quite a few years ago. This is Hot Gun on the Death of Yudeka Harjo. Well, so hard can he say? My old-time friend, you're
Interesting combination of beautiful voice. And interesting subject there. It's not too often you hear something like that. It's
Yes, motto to Dr. Kunkel and Jared Moore.
Jared, thank you, sir. Now, my mother was a singer, and when she went to Sequoia, and incredible soprano, Jenny Lee Fife. It was Jenny Lee Bark then, and I think she told me once that people wanted her to audition for the Juilliard School.
Did she ever do anything like that?
No, so she had me.
She had you, huh?
She got married to my dad.
Too.
Yeah, so that was kind of it. Now, Kayla, we are kind of giving you a baptism of fire here today, and I understand you have some experience in our business here and as a journalist for the U.S. Air Force. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a broadcast communication specialist for 4 years while I was in the Air Force. I started out doing video and then ended up adding photo and written journalism as well.
Mm-hmm. So what possessed you, I guess, to apply for the job here with the Mvskoke Media?
Well, I mean, I've enjoyed doing journalism, and I think that this is a good way for me to put, what I know how to do back towards the tribe and be able to represent people and be the voice for people that, don't feel like they can come out and say the things that they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long process too, wasn't it, Kaylee? Like, I was like, apply, and then she would apply, and then there'd be some hold up, and then the job would come open again. I'd be like, apply now, do it again. She would apply again. This happened like 3 times, I think, or...
Yes, it was a long process,
yeah.
but, I just kept praying. I knew if it was going to happen, it was going to happen, and thankfully it did, and so I think it was meant to be.
Okay, now you've only been on board with us for this week, actually, right?
Yes.
And you did your orientation and things like that. And as you come into our little world here, what's your personal assessment of what you see here with Mvskoke Media?
I have enjoyed it so far. Everyone's been very welcoming.
We'll fix that.
I think everyone, seems very dedicated to what they're doing and interested and, enjoys their job, so...
Okay. Well, thank you. We're glad you're with us. You sounded pretty good here today, so maybe we'll begin to incorporate you into our radio end of it and as another associate producer. So glad you're with us here. Okay, that'll do it for us this week. Later on this month, I'll be taking a week off. So. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.